Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Engage A podcast. I am Josh with my co-host Mike. Today we are focusing on recapping week 14 of the NFL season, but we've hit that point where we have some free time with not a lot of games this week, so we can check in on the NBA. We're about a quarter of the way into the season. This is a little bit later than we started our NBA talk last year, but it's been a busy year, and we've been talking more college football this year than we've ever talked before on the pod. So we finally get a chance to talk about the NBA. So we'll start there. We both have brought five teams each we want to talk about. I'm sure we'll cover some other teams around the league as we go through this discussion, but I will start us off. My first team, of course, I'm talking about is my Phoenix Suns. And it's very similar to what we were talking about last year when we talked about this team. Injuries once again plaguing this team, but it's really worse than it's ever been this year. They're 10-3 when Kevin Durant is in the lineup, 2-8 without him, and I'm pretty sure that one of those 10-3 he got, or two of those 10-3 he got hurt in. So it'd probably even be better if it wasn't if they didn't lose those games he got hurt in. And then 2-8 without him, of course, is horrible. He's averaging 25.8 points per game, 6.7 boards, 3.1 assists. He's been so good. I mean, if this doesn't show MVP, I don't know what does. If he can come back and actually qualify for some of these awards, which at this point I believe the minimum is what, 65 games? So you can miss 17. He's already missed 10. So at this point, pretty much assume he's not going to be up for any award or any All NBA team with that many missed games. Beal's also missed 8 games this year. Nurkic has missed 7 games. So when you take that, that's 25 missed combined games between three of the five Suns starters. Tyus Jones and Devin Booker have not missed a game yet. If one of those two goes out, it's going to be really bad for the Suns. They're near unwatchable with without Kevin Durant in the lineup. And the main thing that I'm taking from this year as a Suns fan is I can confidently say that Kevin Durant is my favorite basketball player on any of my college or NBA teams to watch play basketball. Not because of what he's done or what he's accomplished with the Suns, because obviously Devin Booker has accomplished a ton more, and he's my favorite hooper of all time. But if we're talking strictly their game, there's nobody I'd rather watch in the NBA than Kevin Durant. He's truly just a treat to have on your team. He's efficient. He takes good shots. His game is smooth on both ends. It's just he's got when his career is said and done. Hopefully, it's as a Sun as Matt Ishbia continues to say in all of his interviews. He's I'm gonna have to be arguing him for the best offensive player of all time because he's truly just so amazing to watch play basketball on both sides of the court. I know he's getting older now. I know he misses a ton of games because he gets hurt so often, but he's dominant. He's so satisfying to watch. And when you take him off the Suns, it becomes significantly harder to watch them play basketball. They still, even without him, are at 11th in offensive efficiency. With him, they'd probably be in the top five there. Defense, they're 23rd. They're probably closer to 15 with him in the lineup. Middle of the road strength of schedule remaining for them, less than three-fourths of the season remaining, of course, but they do not have a extremely hard or easy strength of schedule, meaning they played about a medium strength of schedule so far, and they sit at 12 and 11 at 10th in the West. Booker's field goal percentage is definitely concerning. It's been pretty bad this year, even with Kevin Durant, but his supporting cast has been horrid. I expect that percentage to go up. Unlike some other people who have been really inefficient so far, I'll talk about them a little bit later. He's still averaging 24 points per game, I believe, so he's been very good as far as scoring goes. I still believe fully healthy, this is a top five team in basketball, but assuming that they're ever going to be fully healthy for a significant stretch would make me a fool. I don't think they're going to be. Uh, my futures at the beginning of the year for the Suns to win the West and win the finals looked amazing. There was great value. The odds shot way down after the beginning of the year, but now they're back around 500. KD's missed about half the games, and it's been pretty brutal.
Yeah, the first team I'm going to talk about here is going to be my team, the Chicago Bulls, in a different territory where just the Bulls have been a just painfully mediocre basketball team for about a decade now. Been a long time. They're currently 10th in the Eastern Conference at 10 and 15 in the last play-in spot. They haven't been great on either side of the ball. They're 12th in offensive efficiency, which is solid, but been pretty bad defensively, 28th in defensive efficiency. They're scoring about 114.8 points per 100 possessions, which is in the middle of the pack. But like I said, the defense really just hasn't been there all around. This team is just mediocre. They've had a lot of guys on the team for an extended period of time now. Zach LaVine's been in Chicago for a while. Nikola Vucevic has been here a while, and they really haven't produced much in terms of winning basketball. It was nice to see Lonzo Ball. He's been back at the start of the year. He's been banged up and injured. He's been maybe the Bulls' most important player when he's available and on the court. He's their best in terms of plus minus on the team. One of the only guys on the Bulls who's plus minus that gets extended playing time when he's healthy. We've seen more Matas Buzelis recently. He's been a solid just depth piece for the Bulls. Hopefully he can continue to develop into something good. The Josh Giddey on the Bulls hasn't been great. He's one of their lower plus minus players in terms of being on the court. The worst guy in plus minus on the court is Patrick Williams at minus 5.2 per game. Uh, a lot of promise going into his career, and he really hasn't shown anything. He's shown some flashes, but overall has not been as great of a player as he would have wanted him to be. Just disappointing. And this team's just painfully mid. And I wish they could be worse and fighting for that first overall pick, but they just love to be this mediocre team. They do have one of the easiest strength of schedules remaining in the NBA. There's still a lot of season left, but that's only going to probably lead to a couple more wins for them, which might be unfortunate. They give up 123.6 points per game, which is most in the NBA. Like I said, the defense has been bad. Opponents shoot almost 50% against this Bulls team. Just Chicago sports, I guess, mediocre and bad.
And what's wild is the past few years they've been just as mediocre, but their offense has been horrible and their defense has actually been pretty good.
Yeah.
And it just completely falls apart this year. And at least for the Bulls, it's not like DeRozan went to a team that is dominating, per se. I don't
No.
know if we're gonna really talk about the Kings today, so I guess we can say that now, but they've been pretty bad so far.
Yeah, they haven't been great, but they lose to Rosen and they're still the same team. So
Yeah,
just I
just
guess
differently.
opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's odd. And that Patrick Williams pick, we talked about it when he went fourth overall. Just tough. Came off the bench too, going into the in his what sophomore season it was with FSU, and then he comes in, gets drafted fourth overall, and just never really lives up to it. Unfortunately, he had the tools, but he could have
Yeah, I think
been like an
he
OG
won
and an
sixth
OB.
man of the year. Yeah, I mean that would have been kind of what he won. Everyone called him Baby Kawhi. That
Yeah,
hasn't lived up at
Jesus.
all.
Yeah, that's been horrible. It might have just been the haircut, honestly.
Yeah.
That might have been the only thing holding that back or holding that in. But I'll move over to the East then, talking about another team close to Chicago with the Indiana Pacers. They're 10 and 15 so far this year, ninth in the East. This looked like a team that after last year, who they made a good playoff run. Maybe some of it was lucky, maybe some of it wasn't. But they look like they'd be an up and coming team in the recent years, and they're really struggling this year. Tyrese Halliburton has completely fallen off a cliff. He is in a similar boat to Booker as they're both averaging low 40s from the field. Halliburton shooting 42, but the difference is he's only averaging 17 points on that 42% shooting. So he has not been able to get it done. He, of course, still averages 8 assists. He's a great decision maker. He's a great playmaker. But as far as actual scoring, he's not there. And when you're on a team where your best scorer is Pascal Siakam, you need a guy like Tyrese Halliburton who could shoot like that from three to be able to put up some points and be able to be your second scorer. And even with 17 points per game, he's just not that. And not to hate on Pascal Siakam, but he's just not a number one on a great team, honestly. And I know they got some good pieces there. I like Miles Turner. I really like Benedict Mathurin, who's starting to come into his own a little bit. He's averaging 18 and 6 this year. He's been pretty good. But Siakam is just not a number one on that kind of team. They've been pretty bad defensively, 25th in defensive efficiency, 16th in offensive efficiency. They have the ninth remaining strength of schedule, which the remaining strength of schedule doesn't tell me much about really anything outside of what they've already played, and they are sitting at 10 and 15 with the ninth remaining. Unless Halliburton can become this great three-point shooter and scorer again, they're not going to be a good team. They need him to turn himself into a scorer somehow. What he was in Sacramento, he needs to bring that, or even what he was last year in the beginning of the year when they went on that magical NBA Cup run. I guess it wasn't the NBA Cup then, but they need him to get back to that ability. I don't know if they fully can. I don't have much confidence they could turn it around, but I'm rooting for him. I like Halliburton. I just his game right now is pretty tough to watch.
Yeah, I like Halliburton. I like the Pacers team in Indianapolis overall, but yeah, they've been very rough. Halliburton has not been good. A lot of fans are not enjoying what they're watching at all over there. I'm going to move over to the Western Conference now and talk about the Lakers. They had a strong start to the season with JJ Redick, a couple nice wins, but they've kind of steadied off, fallen off a little bit. 13 and 11 when I did this, eighth in the Western Conference. They were 13th in offensive efficiency, 26th in defensive efficiency. So kind of similar to the Bulls with a decent offense, but pretty bad defensively. They've been very bad defensively. Teams are shooting about 48.7% against them right now. They are bad against the 3 point. Teams are shooting about 38% from three. That's third worst in the NBA, giving up 115.8. This Lakers team just very bad defensively. And you look at when they're on the court, their average plus minus per game. Shockingly, LeBron James is probably the lowest in terms of people who actually play on this team at minus 5.6 per game, which isn't something you really expect to see. And surprisingly, the highest is actually D'Angelo Russell, who, when you're watching, you feel like he kind of is a little bit of a liability to this Lakers team, but the plus minus there shows otherwise. His team has been relying on LeBron James and Anthony Davis a lot. We've seen it pretty much the last couple years, and it kind of has continued. LeBron missed his first game of the season last night with a foot injury. He originally wanted to play all 82 games of the season, but JJ Redick and the coaching staff, I kind of agree with you. He's already older. Trying to force him out there every single game. If there's any player in the NBA who probably would need rest at this point, it's definitely LeBron. He's been in the NBA for what, 22 years. He's going to need some times to rest. He had a little bit of a huge shooting slump throughout the season, but he has had some games getting back to where he was early in the season, scoring wise. Still has kept his more than 10 points in every game since 2008 stat, which is just ridiculous. He's been close. This Lakers team overall, though, they got to get better defensively. They need to come together there. They've been a solid offensive team, but Anthony Davis, who was a depoy candidate to start the year, he's kind of struggled a little bit in that aspect as well. He's still averaging about 4.2 blocks per game, which is ridiculous. But this Lakers team just needs to get better defensively, and hopefully that'll help boost him up in the standings.
Yeah, I don't got shit to say about the Lakers, but I mean, we have to talk about LeBron James. I don't care if people talk about the shooting slump or whatever. This is unfucking believable what he is doing right now. He is turning 40 years old 3 weeks from today, and he is one of the best players in the NBA. I still have him in my top 10. 23, 9, and 8 a game. He's fourth in assists in the league. He's shooting 50% from the field, and that's with a horrible shooting slump. I mean, I'm just looking at his game to game here. He went a stretch where he went 6, 0 for 19. He missed 19 straight threes in 4 games. And it doesn't matter. He bounces back. Last game he played, I know you said he missed his first game last night, but he played on Friday, put up 40, 11, and 10. I mean, that's just ridiculous. We've never seen this before. I know LeBron Jordan debaters are going to continue to talk about the six ring, 6 for 6. LeBron is what, 4-5 in the finals, or is it 4-5?
4-6.
4-6 maybe, something like that. Yeah, I think it is 4-6. But regardless, he made the finals 10 times in his career. He's playing at a level that we've never seen before at his age, and I honestly think this longevity is worth at least one ring. I mean, if we're comparing things here, you can't just compare what we see on the court or what we see in the trophy case. We're seeing something that's never been done before. Maybe it's the same people who want to discount what Travis Hunter's doing to compare it to college football a little bit. You see something you've never seen before, and people want to just take the classic, oh, best best player has most rings, is the best player on his team, puts up the most points. Well, okay, we've never seen a player be 40 years old and be a top 10 NBA player for damn near their entire career. I think you can argue in LeBron's 23 years he's been a top 10 player the entire time, which is absolutely unbelievable. And I don't understand how that's not the number one thing being talked about every day during the NBA season. I mean, how much longer is he going to do this? He's got probably two more in him, right? I'd assume he's got about two more
He
in
said
him.
he only has one or two left, so
So let's just not take it for granted. He's probably going to finish his career with 24 or 25 seasons played and a top 10 player in all of those seasons, unless he has this crazy fall off. So that's my submission for LeBron James being the GOAT. But
yeah.
it's unbelievable.
He's averaging 23 points, what, 9 assists, 8 rebounds.
I mean, that's ridiculous. He's the best player
Yeah.
on his team, easily. He's better than Anthony Davis. I know Davis has had some moments, but yeah, I mean, I hate to you hate to give a caveat and add something to like a player winning MVP and being like, oh well, they did this, but they still averaged this, or they were on this team and they still averaged this. But I think you gotta kind of take that into consideration. Like he's 40 years old and he's an MVP candidate. It's wild. It's wild to see, and I'm just happy that we're alive during a time where that's happening because I wouldn't want it any other way. I wish he was. I would want it one other way. I wish he wasn't on the Lakers. That's my only
That's fair.
Only difference, I wish he was still on the Cavs or maybe the Heat, but um,
I mean, yeah, his player impact estimate, which is, I mean, estimates how impactful a player is in terms of people who like actually get significant playing time a game. You got Jokic is sitting at what is it, 21.3, and then you have LeBron's right below Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is at 18, LeBron's at 15. A lot of guys in between, but I mean he's almost 40. So
I mean it's unbelievable. We're looking at like if you look at usage rate, he has a 29% usage rate. That's ridiculous. His career average is 31.4. So he's just 2% under his career average usage rate as one of the best players of all time at 40 years old.
yeah, he's basically tied almost with Luka in player impact estimate. So
Yeah, it's
and
wild.
Luka's considered being in his prime.
Yeah, so I just think I know people hate LeBron, and if he was as likable as some other players, he probably would be looked at in a different light. But my God, he's just been ridiculous, and I don't think he's gonna stop anytime soon. I mean, he's probably better this year than he's been past few years in his career too, which is crazy. He's kind of getting better a little bit. Just wild, but I guess you
Yeah,
take care of your body. You're in an era where you have the money to do that. But even with that, it's easy to be like, oh, well, now players, they all have a ton of money. They're all going to be able to do the LeBron method. And I just don't see that happening. I don't
yeah.
think
There's not.
we're not going to see a wave of people go into their 40s as one of the best athletes in their game.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's a handful of guys you can maybe see. I mean, maybe Luka's able to play that long. He doesn't.
He's not in great shape in his
He's
20s.
not in great. I mean, that's what I mean though. Is he's not in great shape in his 20. Maybe he can stay in this shape.
I don't
Uh,
think this is a shape that you can play in your 40s. If LeBron was Luca's metrics right now, he would not be in a good spot.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
LeBron's
talking.
usage rate is tied with like Damian Lillard, Brandon Miller, Steph Curry, another older fella. But yeah,
Yeah, wild. Absolutely wild. Especially with his play style too. Like Steph has a play style where he could play a long time. Like he's a
and
shooter.
yeah,
He's not really banging bodies in the paint. He's not playing the best defense. LeBron's out there just driving to the rim and dunking on dudes at 40 years old. It's ridiculous. You see John Morant quits dunking at fucking 28 or whatever he is, 24
yeah, he had
about.
a nasty one the other night though.
He did, and I'll get into him later as I have the Grizzlies on here. But we can move on now to the Rockets, who are 16 and 8, third in the West. This is a team that's been young for a pretty long time now, but they're starting to come into their own now. Sengun is an absolute freak. 18 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game. We kind of saw this coming in the past year or so, where it's like this dude can be like a baby Jokic. He was getting a lot of that hype, but he's fully coming into his own now. He's been phenomenal for this team. Jalen Green, still a shot chucker, still not super efficient, but he does lead the team in points. Van Vliet has been great for the Rockets. He's averaging a 4.8 assist to turnover ratio. That's phenomenal. Anytime you're in the fours and assist to turnover, you're in a phenomenal spot. He's really leading this team. Seven players on this team are averaging 10 plus points per game. They have back-to-back seasons of phenomenal defense. They were a great defense all year last year, but they couldn't score points, and it kept them out of the playoffs, kept them out of the play-in. But they were great defensively with Ime, and they're second in defensive efficiency this year now too. They're 18th in offensive efficiency, so their offense is still not where it needs to be, similar to last year, but that's improved, and that's all they needed was to improve on the offensive end, and they're going to be a playoff team. If Jalen Green can become an efficient scorer, this can be a really, really good team. I think that's a big if because I'm not a huge fan of Jalen Green's game. But if he can learn to become a shot maker and not a shot taker, he's going to be in a good spot. They have the 10th remaining strength of schedule, so they haven't played the hardest schedule so far. But that, like we said, doesn't mean much. I think they're going to be in a great spot. I think this is a playoff team. I love their defense. I just hope they don't get into a point where they're that defensive team that just can't score points, and we're in a league where you got to be able to score points.
Yeah, you got to be able to score points. But another team that's great defensively, the Golden State Warriors, fifth in defensive efficiency, very good defensive team. They've had a strong start. They've steadied off a little bit as well. They're 14 and 9, fifth in the Western Conference. 15th in offensive efficiency. They have been missing Curry for a few games, but still have been a solid team, scoring about 113 points per 100 possessions, again in the middle of the pack. But defensively, this team has been great. Third best in opponent field goal percentage at 43.87. One of the best teams at guarding the three-pointers. Teams are only shooting 32.8% from three-point. They have multiple losses to the Clippers, but outside of them, they've been pretty good. They did lose DeAnthony Melton to a torn ACL. He's been good guarding some of the guards to keep those matchups away from Steph Curry. And that's just another guy like LeBron James who's getting older, but is still just dominating the NBA. Steph Curry's averaging
I
23,
thought you were
which
talking about
is
Melton for a second.
no,
I was like,
no.
huh?
No, Steph Curry's averaging about 23 points per game, which is kind of on the lower end. So his offensive usage has been down a little bit more than normal. But in terms of plus minus per game, he's sitting at 7.7, which is by far the highest on this team and has got to be pretty high up there in the NBA overall. Draymond Green continues to just be the same player he's been for a while now. Scores only 8.8 points per game, but just fills up pretty much the entire box score. He's got 6 assists a game, 6.4 rebounds per game, gets a steal and a block per game, and is second on the team in plus minus per game at about five per game. He's been very good. Wiggins has been better this season for this team, averaging about 17 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. He's been very, very good in the plus minus. It's nice to see him back to like 2 years ago. He struggled a little bit last year, but seems to be coming back a little bit. Buddy Hield had a great start for the Warriors. He's struggled a little bit recently. He's shooting 43% from three right now, which is exactly what you want from Buddy Hield. He shoots about 7.6 of them per game. They need him to shoot the ball well if they want to continue to be a better team offensively. Right now, they have the defense. They just need to find a little bit more on that offensive side of the ball. And if he can get back to that good shooting, that could be huge for him. And just a good defensive team, like I said. I think the offense will continue to come around. I think this Warriors team will make the playoffs if they're able to compete with some of the younger teams. We saw last night they beat the Timberwolves. Draymond Green, ISO on Rudy Gobert, blew by him and yammed it. He's just and then he does the Steph Curry, but I mean, he did it a little wrong. I mean, he had the pillow in an interesting spot. He was excited though, and I know people hate Draymond Green, but he's just a funny guy to watch sometimes if you take personal hatred out of the way. But this Warriors team is solid, and I think they'll make the playoffs. And if Steph Curry can get hot, they can beat anybody.
Did Curry invent the go to sleep celebration? I
I
think
mean,
he just
he didn't
did it one
invent it.
time.
He just did it, and then it
Kept
kind of
doing
became
it.
his thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good celebration. I didn't think you could take an iconic celebration like that, just give it to a guy. But I mean,
I
lucky
mean,
for Curry.
it's kind of become his main thing. I mean, I don't really see too many players doing it every time. He does it pretty much every time he hits a dagger.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a thing in the fighting game for
Well, yeah, the fighting game, yeah.
centuries. But we can move on here. Team I talked
Draymond
about.
doing it was funny though.
I didn't even see him do it. I got to look that
Oh,
up. But
he was doing it like up here, like on the top of his head,
maybe that's how he sleeps.
and he was just running up and down the court doing it too. So.
We can move on here to the Memphis Grizzlies, who are 17-8, second in the West. Rookie Zach Edey had a great start, but he got hurt. He's been out for a while now. I'm not sure exactly what his injury is, but he's been out for a little bit now. Triple J averaging 2 blocks a game, his usual stuff there, along with 22 points a game, which is great for him. That's been a big part of why this Grizzlies team has been so good. Ja's missed a good amount of time, but when he's been playing, he's been great. Like we said he's stopped dunking now, which isn't completely true, but I think that's probably a good thing for him to do. I think D Rose probably should have learned that during his time. Maybe he talked to John, was like, "Hey man, maybe like quit the dunking, don't land on your knees like that all the time. You're gonna be playing for a while and stay off IG Live probably too." But Santi Aldama has been great for them, quietly a really great role player in the NBA. You don't hear a ton about him. Memphis has not played many good teams. They do have the number one strength of schedule remaining, but they're a very well-rounded team. They're not a lot of the teams in the NBA these days are either great offensively and okay defensively or great defensively and okay offensively, but they're sixth in offensive efficiency, fourth in defensive efficiency. They've been able to get it done on both ends. They have been out of the playoffs for a couple of years now after looking like they were going to be one of the young up and coming great teams in this league. I think they're going to be back in the playoffs now. They just got to stay healthy, and I have more confidence in them staying healthy than some of these other teams.
Yeah, I'll move over to the Eastern Conference now and talk about the Knicks a little bit. They had a kind of a rough start, but they've been very good recently. They've been great at home, sitting at 14-9. The addition of Karl Anthony Towns has helped this team out. They are first in offensive efficiency, one of the best offensive teams in the NBA, in the middle of the pack defensively. But when you're able to be that good on offense, you can win games. They're seventh in points per game at 118, but first in points per possession per 100 possessions with 121.7. I've been one of the teams to beat in the Eastern Conference. I think that'll continue. I think this team is going to make the playoffs and going to be a tough team to beat in the playoffs. They're one of the best teams in field goal percentage. Their offense has been fantastic. Karl Anthony Towns is averaging about 25 points per game right now. He's been great. He's their highest in plus minus per game at 6.7. He's averaging 13.2 rebounds per game. Tom Thibodeau, he's playing a lot of minutes at 33.8. Josh Hart playing almost 38 minutes per game. Brunson at about 34. Brunson hasn't had to do as much, but still averaging 25.4. Him and Karl Anthony Towns accounting for almost 50 points per game total. Those two have been great, two of the best players on the court for this team. And then OG Anunoby, another guy, he's averaging 17. He's great defensively. He's averaging, it looks like, 1.6 steals per game and a block per game. He is their highest plus minus per game at 7. They have a very good starting lineup, obviously with Cat, Bronson, Anunoby, um, Josh Hart. They're going to be tough to beat in the playoffs if they can stay hot. Obviously, New York's a tough place to play, but we'll see how they can continue. They need to get a little bit better defensively, but they're a good team and a tough team to beat in the East.
Okay, I'll finish off my five teams here with the Philadelphia 76ers, who are 7 and 15, 12th in the East. Like a lot of these teams that I'm talking about here, injuries are crumbling this team. Embiid's played just 5 games, but they have been much better since he's come back from injury. Paul George has played just 12 games. He's been in and out of the lineup. A lot of questionable looking injuries on screenshot from him. Maxey having another phenomenal season, 24 points per game from him. Jared McCain, he's number one on the rookie ladder now, averaging 15 a game. That's something I didn't see coming as someone who's watched a ton of Jared McCain in college. I thought he was going to be a solid role player in the NBA, a good scorer, but I didn't think he'd be anywhere near as good as he's been so far, and he's just probably going to get better. I think they can be a pretty great team fully healthy. They have two stars in Embiid and Paul George, if you want to still call Paul George a star. They have Maxey, who's a budding superstar in this league. Jared McCain, who's a really good rookie. They have some solid role players, so they can be a good team. But just like the old Clippers that we were talking about last year and the current Suns, you can't expect this team to be healthy for a long stretch with two guys in Paul George and Embiid who continue to get hurt. It's you can't win without them, and you can't count on them being there, and that's not a good recipe for a team. 27th in offensive efficiency. They've been a lot better on defense, 12th in defensive efficiency. I think that'll continue. I think this is a good, well-coached defensive team from Nick Nurse. A ton of off-court issues with the whole locker room thing surrounding Embiid, and then he got into a fight with a reporter, and he missed a ton of time with injuries. So there's been a lot of off-court things about this team. I still think this team is going to sneak in the playoffs. I think they have enough talent where Paul George will play some games and get hurt, and Embiid will play some games and get hurt, and they'll still find themselves probably in the play-in or the maybe the sixth seed in the playoffs. But I still see them losing early. I don't think this team that could do any damage unless everybody can stay healthy. But like I said, you can't count on that.
Yeah, last team I'll talk about is the Thunder. They're currently 18 and 5, first in the Western Conference, one of the best teams all around in the NBA, eighth in offensive efficiency, first in defensive efficiency. They're 10th in points per game with 115.8. They're sixth in points per 100 possessions at 115.8. They're one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. Like I said, they lead the NBA in steals per game with 11.9, second in opponent field goal percent or points per game at 103.8 and hold their opponents to about 42.5% field goal percentage. They've lost Chet Holmgren about a month ago for about 8 to 10 weeks with a hip fracture, but they've been able to stay afloat. Like I said, they've been so good defensively that teams just can't score on them. Isaiah Hartenstein, when he's available to play, has been good for this team, plus minus a 10.5 when he's on the court. He's only played in 8 games so far this year, but he's been good for them, averaging a double-double. You obviously have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's playing like an MVP candidate, almost averaging 30 points per game, or 29.8 points per game. He's been phenomenal all around. Jalen Williams has been great for this team. Just a solid, very good defensive player. Thunder have outscored their opponents by 12 points per 100 possessions in 162 minutes with Jalen Williams playing the five. He's been one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. This team has so many pieces. They traded for Caruso. Kassan Wallace has been good for them. Jalen Williams, like I said, Lou Dort plays a lot for them. Just so many weapons. Aaron Wiggins has been solid for them. They can beat you in a lot of different places, and they're led by an MVP candidate, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So they made the playoffs last year. They made a small run. I can see this team making a deep run in the playoffs this year and potentially getting to the finals if they can get past a team like the Nuggets, who I think they can beat.
Do you have any thoughts on Chet Holmgren's preferred Thanksgiving meal, or none on that?
Um,
You
uh,
had nothing written down about that?
I had nothing written down about that. I just
Oxtail, cornbread,
don't.
and
I
greens
just don't
to
believe him.
refresh you. Okay,
I
cool.
just
Yeah,
don't believe him.
fair enough. Fair enough. But we can move on then
He's
to
from
the
Minnesota.
yeah, he is from Minnesota. Maybe the M though, we don't know. Um, all right, we can move on now to the NFL Week 14 recap. We will recap every game up until Monday Night Football, which is going on as we're recording this. We will talk about that game on Wednesday's episode, but we'll start here. Thursday Night Football. The Detroit Football Lions beat the Green Bay Packers 31 to 34. This was a great game. One of the best Thursday night games we've had in a while. I know people were upset that Al Michaels didn't fully bring the energy for this game. He's still one of my goats. I don't care. Anytime he's calling a game, I'm going to be tuned in. Lions continue to overcome injuries on defense. They lost Branch and Aleem in this game. They're now down nearly every good player they have on defense outside of Kirby Joseph, Carlton Davis, and Jack Campbell. Everybody else is hurt. You had Quan Alexander, Ezekiel Turner, Jamal Adams, Pat O'Connor, Matt Miles Adams, David Long, Al Quadin Muhammad, all players that were not on the Lions active roster to start the year, all made impacts in this game. The Lions announced their defensive players in this game and had them walk out and had guys like Quan Alexander and Al Quadin Muhammad and Pat O'Connor and Ezekiel Turner, who haven't been on this team, got announced. The Lions are just about everybody. They're about it being a unit and they want to respect these guys. And a lot of them really came to play in this game. Specifically, Pat O'Connor was huge in this game with no Reader or Aleem for most of the game for Aleem. He was great. He was getting to the quarterback. He wasn't phenomenal against the run, but for Pat O'Connor, he was great. Ezekiel Turner was really, really good replacing Rodrigo slash Anzalone. He had, I believe, the Lions' second highest PFF grade of the week. He was great. He made a huge play on Jordan Love running out of the pocket, slammed him to the ground. That was a great play. Zadarius Smith continues to dominate for the Lions. So many pressures. He's up to 3 sacks in his 4 games now with the Lions. They were outstanding defensively in the first half. Each week that goes by, Lions lose a couple defensive players and they go out there and they have a good performance. Each week, Aaron Glenn earns himself more and more interviews. Lions offensively were moving the ball pretty well all game. A bad golf pick hurt them for sure, but they bounced back. They were 4 for 5 on fourth down. People will be mad about the one they didn't get on their own 30, but I agreed with all 5 calls in the moment. Even that one where it was on their own 30 that they didn't get. I think it was a dumb play call with a toss to Jahmyr Gibbs, but I still agreed with the call to go for it. Teddy Bruschi's on ESPN yesterday talking all this shit about Dan Campbell. That's not how you play. You need to play like you're the best team in the league because you are. Those are the type of guys that like a Brandon Staley, who's this methodical offensive threat who sometimes he's going to go for it, but he's going to play the analytics. They don't like a guy like Dan Campbell who's going to go in there and he's going to be who he is and he's not going to conform to be who you want him to be, Teddy Bruschi, or who your colleagues at ESPN want him to be. He's going to be Dan Campbell and he's going to continue to do what he's done his entire career as a head coach, and that's rolled the dice. And it's worked out a lot better for him than it's worked out for a lot of these coaches in the NFL today. If you look at the coaches that were hired in his coaching cycle, most of those dudes don't have jobs as a head coach anymore. Dan Campbell does. So obviously he's doing something right, Teddy. 6 pass catchers with 5+ receptions for the Lions. They're pretty impossible to guard offensively. They just continue to have so many guys who can beat you. Sam Laporta will go quiet for a few games and then go give you 8 catches for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Uh, Jameson Williams, he's one of the best speed threats in the league. He was great in this game. He's not just running streak routes anymore. He's running a ton of in routes, which is what the Lions love to do. He was great. Second half in this game, the Lions get punched in the mouth. Green Bay comes out of half, long drive touchdown, and the Lions throw that pick with Goff. Then Green Bay gets another touchdown on a short field. Later on, Lions don't get it on that fourth down in their own 30, and then Green Bay scores there, but they were able to keep fighting back offensively and win this game. The defense does give up 31 on paper. You probably think, oh, it wasn't a great game from the Lions defense. The injuries are starting to hurt, but at least 14 of those were on Goff and Dan Campbell for going for it on fourth down. Outside of that, they were pretty stellar, just 17 points allowed, especially given the circumstance with everybody there. They're going to get a lot of reinforcements, hopefully back on a long bye here. They should get back Taylor Decker, who's the only offensive player really hurt right now, and then hopefully Levi Onwuzurike, Josh Pascal, Ali McNeil, DJ Reader, Brian Branch. Hopefully 3 or 4 of those guys minimum can come back. The Lions need them desperately. Still looks like Anzalone's on track to come back around week 18, which will be huge. The Lions absolutely needed it. once the Lions held the Packers to that field goal at the end of the game, I kind of knew it was over. You kind of just felt like the Lions were going to go drive there and drive down and kick a field goal and win the game no matter what. The only question was, would there be any time afterwards? And that Dan Campbell going for it on fourth down, that's a big boss play. I was completely for it. Everybody, even afterwards, was like, I don't know why you did that. Well, the defense easily could have given up a field goal, and then you go to overtime. You don't want to go to overtime, and when you've converted on three or four fourth downs, and your offense has moved basically flawlessly for the second half, why would you not go for that? I don't understand why people were so mad about that, but I've looked into it because of the Lions' strength of schedule, which has been tough at times this year compared to other teams like the Eagles, and it's going to probably come into play here. The Lions can go 3-1 in the last four and get the one seed regardless of what Philadelphia does. The Eagles need the Lions to lose two games minimum to get that one seed. It doesn't matter if the Lions lose to the Bills or Week 18 to the Vikings. They're going to be fine if they go 3-1 in that stretch, and hopefully they can win those two road games at Chicago and at San Francisco. But the Lions tie their 12 wins from last season now. They almost guarantee that Green Bay can't win the North. This will be three straight years of Green Bay not winning the North. This will be the first time this has happened since the 2008 to 2010 stretch. So I feel great about the Lions. This is a huge win. A lot of people didn't expect them to win here. They win and they push on the spread. So I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I completely agreed with most of the going forward on fourth downs in for Dan Campbell. The last one I thought was a little bit iffy, but if you get it, the game is essentially over. So I understood that aspect of it. But I also could see just kicking the field goal, not really much that Jordan Love could do to get into field goal range at that point. But they went for it, got it. So that call shouldn't really be looked at. If they went for it and didn't get it, then that would have been a whole different story. But they got it, so it doesn't matter. Lions offense looked good and great in this game again. Jared Goff, 3 touchdowns, does have an interception on which was unfortunate. They ran the ball pretty well on this Packers run defense that has been solid. Get 111 yards, split carries between Montgomery and Gibbs, basically identical. And then the receiving game, they have multiple guys who can do it. Jamison Williams, like you said, he has a big game on the in routes. Amon-Ra St. Brown has a solid game. And Tim Patrick, wide receiver 3, goes out there and gets 2 touchdowns on 6 catches for 43 yards. He was big in this game. They just have a lot of guys that can go and get it done on that offensive side of the ball. Ben Johnson is great at getting just anybody open and trusting them to make the plays. For the Packers, didn't run the ball well. The Lions' run defense has been good all season. Forced Jordan Love into a lot of passes. He made some plays, but they really couldn't move the ball enough. They looked a lot better in the second half than they did in the first half. Game kind of looked like it was going towards the Lions starting to take over, up 17-7 at half, but Packers fought their way back into this game and just weren't able to get it done. Lions did a great job slowing down the Packers pass catchers, only 3 guys with over 3 catches. Jaden Reed doesn't get a catch in this game, which is very surprising from him. And then Christian Watson, 4 catches, 114 yards, had a big game, but did lose a fumble, which hurt the Packers. Like you said, Lions only need to go 3-1 to clinch that first overall seed, which would be huge. I see them doing that. Their last games, like you said, they still have the Bills and then the 2 road games, Bears, 49ers, and then home against the Vikings. As long as they win those home games and 1 road game, they should be fine.
Two road games.
The Yeah,
In
that's
San
what I meant.
Francisco.
2 road games, 2 home games. As long as they can win one of the
Oh,
road
right. I
games,
got you.
they should be fine. I think they should win both of the road games. It's the 2 home games that are rough, but they've been great at home all season. I expect that to continue. 6-1 at home. Their one loss is at home, so I think they still get that first seed. And the Packers, they're 9-4, and sitting at third in your division has to be kind of a rough feeling.
That loss kills me too because they should have beaten the Bucks in that game too. That was just a bad 0 for 5 in the red zone or whatever they were. They're so close to being 13-0 right now. But and then
Yeah,
not having to worry about this last stretch at all. But it is what it is.
would you want to go undefeated into the playoffs? I mean, it'd be
I
cool,
don't know
but
about going undefeated in the playoffs. I more mean they wouldn't have to go 3-1 in this last stretch. Like they
yeah,
would only have to go 2-2.
could
Um,
maybe get in a bye week in that last game of the season against the Vikings. But that
yeah.
game could be a
And the double bye would be so big for the Lions team right
yeah.
now. They need the double bye, but I guess they could still get the double bye if they
They
go
could. Do you
three and
want to
zero.
do you want to double bye though, or
They
it'd
have
be nice for the rest, but
so many
you're
injuries.
playing so well.
Yeah, I get the rest versus rust 100%, but I don't think this is a team that gets impacted by rust.
I mean, I think it's a team. I think that's in that moment where you could have a potential double bye. I think you still play. your offensive guys for like the first
in the
half.
first half. No, 100%. I mean more for like the players who aren't playing
Oh yeah, no,
that
you can
have
like
games where it doesn't affect them.
Anzalone doesn't have to come back yet then.
That's yeah, that kind of stuff. You get Khalif Raymond back on the other side of the bye. Hopefully you. Um, we can also talk about they're saying Hutchinson NFC Championship. That would be that would be crazy. That would be the
Yeah,
17
I
week
haven't
mark of
heard
his
that,
injury.
but uh,
That's the new buzz in the
don't know if I
streets.
believe how much of that I can believe, but
Me neither. Me neither. It'd be the 17 week mark in the NFC Championship. It'd be the 18 or the 19 week mark in the Super Bowl. Even if he does play, I don't know how effective he's going to be, but it would be even if he doesn't play, it'd be cool to just see him be activated and dress and just be on the sidelines dressed.
yeah, I mean the
Even if he
pass rush has
wins the
been
spot.
fine without him.
Yeah, I mean
I
Zedarius
mean it
Smith
hasn't
has
been as
been,
good. Zadarius Smith has been good, is what I'm trying to say. He
but
had a
even
sack in this game as well.
you put Hutch on the field, then Zedarius Smith gets less attention.
Yeah,
You don't got to play Al Quadin Muhammad 100% of the snaps. That'd be ideal. But and to finish this off, we're still waiting to see what Jaden Reed said he was going to do when he came to Detroit. We're still TBD on that, but we can move on now. Also, I believe Dan Campbell's won six of is it 6 of 7, 7 of 8? I don't remember exactly what it is. Six of the last seven, maybe against the Packers. I can't remember, but he owns Matt LaFleur, who is an angry, angry man on the sidelines all game.
yeah,
But
especially pregame, man.
yeah, that was hilarious. I'm all for the guys who were holding the flag out there, just chirping the opposing head coach. He looked like he wanted to go fight the fan. I guess I don't know what he thought he was gonna do there, but we can move on now to like I said, my biggest op, the Eagles. They win 22-16, barely escape their um, Pac-12 schedule that they've been playing here this season. They once again escape what could have been a horrible, horrible loss if string beans and green peas didn't drop that pass late. They would have probably won this game. Unfortunately, he does drop that pass. AJ Brown confirmed after the game what I've been saying for the past entire season for the Eagles. Their pass game is way worse than people think. Hurts throws for 108 yards on 21 attempts in this game. They're not able to pass the ball. Just Saquon Barkley is so damn good, and the defense has been solid as well. That's the reason they are where they are right now. We'll see. It's hard for me to believe a team that is near incompetent passing the ball is going to be able to win playoff games in the year 2024, but maybe they will. Carolina's defense is a big part of how they've been able to start competing, as well as Bryce Young, who was solid in this game. They've both been great. Eagles defense continues to have a solid year, like I said. If they can just figure out that pass game offensively, they're going to be in a really, really good spot. I just don't know if they're going to be able to. They were efficient on third down in this game. They need to be consistent there. They have a pretty easy path to the end, but like I said, they need the Lions to lose two of their last four to get that one seed. I know they, of course, want it bad. Who wouldn't want that bye week? But they need help. I think they'll probably win out here to finish the season. Maybe they lose one. If they lose one, they're pretty much cooked for the one seed. But yeah, we'll see. They gotta continue to win these easy games.
Yeah, they do have to continue to win these easy games. They do here in this game. They looked Bryce Young looked very good in this game. The Panthers were able to cover. The spread moved all the way up to 14, so I did change my take on this game from Eagles -12 to Panthers +14. I thought Bryce Young really looked solid. This is a great Eagles defense that he's going against, and he came back, looked good. He continues to look good ever since the bench. He's came back and looked great. Eagles offensively weren't great in this game, especially Jalen Hurts struggled. The Panthers defense has gotten better as the season has went on. He didn't really get the ball to AJ Brown very much. It seems like there might be some issues going on there. Brandon Graham went on a podcast and
Anyway,
talked about how AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts have a little bit of a were great friends in prior years, and this year they've kind of had a little bit of a disconnect.
he said that.
Yeah, just I just saw that on Twitter a little bit
Why
ago,
the
which is
fuck
crazy
would he
to say
say
that
that?
crazy to say that while you're currently on the team still.
Wow,
Um,
that's wild.
yeah. But Bryce Young had a chance for a game tying drive or a game winning drive late. Had a couple deep throws. Xavier Legette had an unfortunate drop in this one where it could have been a touchdown. I thought it was a touchdown. I was celebrating it, and then all of a sudden he came out that Legette dropped it. Adam Thielen continues to be a huge target for Bryce Young. 9 catches and 102 yards for Thielen in this game. Chuba Hubbard was the main back. Jonathan Brooks only got 1 carry and then went down with a non-contact injury. I still haven't heard anything about him at all. If he's going to be okay, it was a non-contact, looked like knee injury. It looks like he's out indefinitely after re-injuring his ACL. And yeah, that they just announced that it looks like 20 minutes ago that he re-tore his ACL. Very unfortunate for him after he had a great first game back, or not a great game back, but he was starting to look good. And now he's going to have to deal with another ACL tear. That's really unfortunate for him. You hate to see that. But Chuba Hubbard, after fumbling the game away last week, came back this week and had a solid game, got a touchdown on the ground. For the Eagles, we saw Saquon run the ball well on the ground. This Eagles team struggled at home, but I think this Panthers team is kind of just better than we really think at this point. 14-point spread was kind of disrespectful for how they've been playing, but they covered that, and they're kind with the rest of their schedule. I can see them winning some games here. They still got the Cowboys, Cardinals, Buccaneers, and Falcons. I think they can beat the Cowboys, and I think they can compete with all three of the rest of those teams. So Bryce Young's looking better, and Panthers have some promise.
And World of T-shirts is apparently on no jumper. So we can move on here now to the Buccaneers beating the Raiders 28-13. Bucks are going to win the NFC South, I think. We called it a couple weeks ago. I kick myself every week that goes by for not betting that future at plus 400 for them to win the South. It should have been easy money and didn't do it. Baker did Baker things in this game. 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 300 yards. That's a classic Baker game, and it got them the win here. Bucky Irving wasn't going to play, but then got played and then got hurt. And then the Bucks running back depth just continues to come into play. Rashad White was great in this game. They got 3 backs out there with Tucker and White and Irving that if guys go down, they have depth to put in there. For the Raiders, Sincere McCormick has been the best back in Vegas this year. He's been the only one to find any sort of success in any game. He was decent in this game. 30-yard rush really helped him, but still was decent in this game. AOC gets hurt. Ritter came in, but it was a lot of the same that we saw with AOC. Ritter is going to be the starter now. AOC is hurt. I think we'll see Ritter just continue to do what AOC and Gardner Minshew have done, and that's not win games. Raiders going to be in line for a top 3 pick this year. Raiders won the turnover battle in this game 3-2 and still didn't have much of a chance, which is unbelievable. It's hard to win a turnover battle and not really compete in the game, and that's what the Raiders did here. Bucks' ability to run the ball just makes them really dangerous. The only concern I have for them is their secondary. That's my only concern. Outside of that, they're a great passing team. They've been able to run it. They're a great run defense team with Vita Vea. I think they're dangerous. Raiders were a brutal 4 for 13 on third down. Can't win a game when you play like that. And for the Bucks, they're on a run now, but Atlanta does have the worst strength of schedule, the 31st worst strength of schedule in football. So Atlanta's going to have a chance to figure it out if they can. It's no longer the Bucks that have the easy schedule remaining, but still, I believe actually, I think the Falcons get to play the Raiders next week. But regardless, the Falcons have looked horrible. The Bucks have been beating the teams in front of them, and I think they're going to continue to do so. And I like the Bucks to win the division, and I like the Falcons to miss the playoffs completely.
Yeah, at this point, that's kind of where it seems to be looking. Raiders looked very, very bad to start this game. Went down 14-0 quick, lost the ball, but they fought their way back in. AOC made some nice plays. He went down with a knee injury, got carted off in an air cast. It wasn't looking good. It sounded like it could have been a ligament injury to his knee. It looks like, however, it's just a bone bruise. He could be back sooner rather than later, potentially. Definitely won't be back next week, though. Or I don't know what to expect for the rest of the season. He was okay in this game, made some nice throws. They finally had a bit of a run game, like you said, with Sincere McCormick, 78 yards on 15 carries. He was solid. Uh, we saw Michael Mayer, the other tight end for the Raiders, have a great game with 7 catches for 68 yards. Brock Bowers was a little quiet. Did draw a couple pass interferences, though, and had an incredible catch. He's fantastic, and we talked about how he should be in the Rookie of the Year conversation. Buccaneers, this game was closer than it needed to be for a while after that hot start. It was 14-10 for a long time going into the fourth quarter, but they got that touchdown late to really kind of pull away and make it seem farther than it was. Baker's turnovers didn't help him. 2 interceptions, was under pressure a lot, but he gets it done. Threw for almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Mike Evans only 69 yards in this game. It doesn't appear like he's going to get to the 1,000-yard season that he's had in so many consecutive seasons. But game was a little bit closer than I anticipated, but the Buccaneers still cover. Raiders are looking for a top pick. Most likely will go quarterback, and we'll see where they can go from there. I think the Buccaneers win this division, though, like you said. Their strength of schedule, I don't know what the ranking is, but
They're 24 or something, I think.
yeah, I'd say outside of their game next week against the Chargers, which is a huge game for both teams kind of trying to stay in the playoff hunt. The Chargers are pretty much in the playoffs at this point, but you'd like to get a higher seed as much as possible. After that game, they got the Cowboys, who have been playing better. Panthers, they should win that game, but the Panthers are a frisky team. And the Saints, that's another team they should beat. So they aren't the easiest games, but I expect this Buccaneers team to be able to get it done. They did lose Antoine Winfield for at least a couple of weeks, which could be huge for their defense. They're already struggling a little bit in that aspect, but he's been one of their best players, him and Vita Vea. So we'll see how they can recover from that, and hopefully they get Bucky Irving back and ready to go soon.
Okay, moving on here to the Dolphins beating the Jets 32 to 26. Aaron Rodgers probably had his best game as a Jet in this one, but still loses in Miami. Tua back to his dominant ways at home, not playing in the cold weather. He's one of the best quarterbacks in football. I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in football too. People like to criticize him. Of course, the number one topic of him is the injuries and the concussions, but he's a lot better than people really give him credit for. Both quarterbacks have 330 plus yards in this game. Wilson and Adams combined for 16 catches for 223 and a touchdown. They both were phenomenal. Tyreek had his first good game in months where he went over 100 yards, I believe. Yeah, 115 on 10 catches and a touchdown. He was great. Jets were great in the run game and third down defensively, which is where they've been pretty solid all season. They really gave themselves a chance, but the pass game was really, really good for the Dolphins, and both these offenses were flowing. Jets continue to shoot themselves in the foot. 10 penalties in this game. They didn't turn it over, neither team did, but they had 10 penalties, which really hurt them. Dolphins, they get the ball in overtime. They drove down, they get a score, don't even give the Jets a chance to win this one. Ravens, Chargers, and Broncos. You spoke about the Chargers basically being in the playoffs, but they are tied with two other teams at 8 and 5. You have the Colts and the Dolphins are the two teams that are lurking at 6 and 7. So the Dolphins and the Colts are gonna need some help as they're 2 games back at those two teams. But like you said, the Colts get to play the Broncos next week, which is a game where they definitely can put themselves in playoff contention. So the Dolphins and the Colts are not out of it yet, especially if one of those teams, the Ravens, Chargers, or Broncos, has a collapse. But regardless, if the Dolphins do make the playoffs, they're most likely going to end up playing in Buffalo, which is really bad for them. So I don't think they're going to be a team that can go get a playoff win. But technically, they are still in the playoff race, and I think they're a better team than people give them credit for.
Yeah, I think they are too. If it wasn't for the overtime rules, potentially they could have covered the spread of 6.5, but they win by 6 here. They get a touchdown to start overtime after having a very quiet regulation time. Johnny Smith had no catches in regulation, goes to overtime, gets 3 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown on that overtime drive. He was great there. But throughout the game, like you said, we finally saw Tyreek Hill have a big game. Honestly, both of the receivers for him have big games. Waddle gets 9 for 99. Tyreek Hill gets 10, 115, and a touchdown. Both had 10 plus targets. Achan has a solid game in the receiving, 6 catches for 45 yards. On the ground, he adds a touchdown. He was injured for a little bit in this game, went to the Blue Medical tent, but he came back and should be good to go. I agree. I think Tua is one of the best quarterbacks. If as long as the weather is moderate, especially if it's Miami weather, he seems to be great. I threw for 331 yards. If he was able to play all season, I think this Dolphins team would be right there with the Broncos in the playoff hunt. They might have a win head to head over the Colts if he was healthy, but they missed him for that extended period of time, and they're in the position that they are now. But if they win out, they have a chance. Remaining games left for them, like you said, yeah. Texans, that's a tough one. Niners, Browns, Jets. They can win that Texans game. They have a chance to run the table. The Jets here sitting at 3-10 now. You've been out of the playoff race and you just continue to lose games, lose morale. Rodgers almost throws for 350 yards. He was solid, got the ball to his top two weapons as well, just like Hill and Waddle. Wilson and Devontae Adams have big games. 7 and 114 for Garrett Wilson. Devontae Adams has 9 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. They were both good. Just unfortunate you get another loss, but this helps the Jets draft stock. Maybe they look for a quarterback or they try one more time with Aaron Rodgers. It'll be interesting to see. It's really going to be interesting to see who they go for in the coaching carousel. But nice one for the Dolphins. They're trying to stay in the playoff hunt, and they have a chance if the Colts play the Broncos next week. So one of them will lose. I'm assuming. I mean, they don't have the tiebreaker with the Colts, so it'll be interesting to see who they would give them the better opportunity to make the playoffs. But they have a chance.
Okay, moving on here to the Vikings beating the Falcons 42 to 21. Kirk Cousins is in a horrible, horrible slump right now. Four-game losing streak for the Falcons. He has zero touchdowns, eight interceptions in that streak, which is unbelievable. Been possibly the worst quarterback in football during this four-game stretch. He's been so, so bad. And it's hard to imagine that the Falcons feel good about that contract at this very moment. Atlanta's offense was fine, though, for much of this game. Their defense just couldn't do anything. Vikings ended the game on four straight touchdown drives. Addison and Jefferson torched this defense. 15 catches for 265 yards and five touchdowns in this game, which is unbelievable from a receiving duo there. Both of them are really having a great season, uh, even with a quarterback that we have question marks about. Although Darnold, phenomenal game here, 350 yards, five touchdowns, no interceptions for him. Vikings won the turnover battle 3-0. Basically dominated this game. It was close for much of the game until the fourth quarter. Honestly, they were tied 21-21 going into the fourth quarter, but fourth quarter was all Vikings. Vikings, like the Eagles, need the Lions to start losing, but these three teams, Vikings, Eagles, Lions, might be the hottest three teams in football right now. Falcons, like I said, they have the 31st strength of schedule remaining, so they still have a shot at the division, but right now they look helpless. And a stat that has nothing to do with this game, but I found on Twitter earlier today. Most yards gained from defensive pass interference penalties this season. The Vikings are first at 273 yards gained. The Detroit Lions are 32nd at 5 yards gained from defensive pass interference this year, which I'm assuming that means they got one call. So that's just another thing for all those Packers fans out there who want to say the Lions have the refs on their side.
Yeah, Vikings pulled away in this one. It late outscored the Falcons 21 to nothing in the fourth quarter. They continue to win games late in the game. Kirk Cousins is in a huge slump. What was it? Yeah, going into this game, they lost three straight. He had 10 turnovers, six interceptions, and four fumbles. They were 2-6 when Kirk Cousins throws at least one interception in a game, and 4-0 when he does not. The Falcons go into this game, and Kirk Cousins doubles that and throws two interceptions. So he's now up to what in his last four games, 12 turnovers, eight interceptions, four fumbles. He has not been good. If this continues, they're going to have to at least look at the option of Michael Penix. They moved the ball well on the ground. They moved the ball pretty well overall through the game. It was just the turnovers that really, really hurt them in this game. Darnell Mooney had struggled recently, but we saw him have a very good game in this one, six catches, 142 yards. Ray McLeod gets a lot of targets, but he does lose a fumble on a kick return, which really hurt this Falcons team offensively, gave the Vikings perfect field position. Sam Darnold in this game couldn't have been more opposite from Kirk Cousins. He throws for five touchdowns and no picks. Minnesota fans had to have been very happy with what they saw in this game overall. They booed Kirk Cousins going out onto the field, which was interesting because they just didn't re-sign him. It's not like they traded him. It was just interesting. Aaron Jones, solid on the ground. He gets another touchdown. He's been good in that aspect. And both of the Vikings receivers as well. We talked about in the last game with the Dolphins and Jets. Addison, eight catches, 133 yards, and three touchdowns. He was great in this game. He's been very good as of recent. And Justin Jefferson, seven catches, 132 yards, and two touchdowns in this game. That duo was great. TJ Hockenson adds four catches and 45 yards as well. But Sam Darnold, five touchdowns, all to his top two weapons. Couple of terrible Falcons plays in the secondary. The one Justin Jefferson touchdown, the safety or corner looked like he was just completely lost, looking both ways, couldn't find Jefferson. And then on a deep ball to Jordan Addison too, the Falcons defense just got lost. Miscommunication. They're going to have to figure that out. They have to be better. With that easiest strength of schedule remaining, they're going to have to win some of these games. But Raiders, that should be an easy win. Giants, easy win. Commanders, that's a tough game. And the Panthers, they like I said with the Buccaneers, that's a frisky team that you really kind of don't want to see right now. So those are two tough games to end the season. I think the Buccaneers get it done and win that division.
All right, moving on here to an AFC North matchup with the Steelers beating the Browns 27 to 14. It's a boring ass game, but the Steelers did Steeler things and took care of business. Missed field goals, turnovers, muff punts from Kadarius Toney really hurt Cleveland bad in this game. Steelers did not play well offensively really at all. Myles Garrett was pretty good, but the Browns' mistakes on offense and on special teams gave the Steelers this game. Browns offense was really, really bad. 2 for 13 on third down, three turnovers, nine penalties. They just had nothing going for them offensively. Exactly 30 minutes, no seconds for each team in time of possession. I don't know if I've ever seen that in a football game. Exactly even to the second on time of possession is crazy. Steelers, though, they have a gauntlet remaining. They have Chiefs, Ravens, Eagles, Bengals for their last four, which is tough. They do have a two-game lead and currently have the tiebreaker over the Ravens for the division. So I think they're going to win the division. A win versus the Ravens here would really count out anything that happens versus the Chiefs, Eagles, and Bengals. If they can get that win versus the Ravens, I believe on, I don't think it's on Christmas. I think it's the week before Christmas. They play the Chiefs on Christmas, but if they can get that win, none of the other games really matter. I think they're going to win the division. I think they're a good team, but their offense was pretty brutal in this game.
Yeah, it was Jameis Winston. Continues to be Jameis Winston. He gets two touchdowns and two picks, perfectly balanced from him. Threw for 212 yards. Wasn't great against the Steelers defense. There wasn't conditions to help the Browns out in this game. Nick Chubb wasn't great on the ground. He hasn't really been great all season on the ground. He was better than Jerome Ford, but hopefully he's able to continue his recovery next season and maybe have a big year next year again. He's one of the best running backs, but he is getting older. He turns 29 here at the end of December, about 2 or 3 weeks from now. He's getting older, but he's been one of the best running backs. Jerry Jeudy continues to be the Browns' top target. He gets a touchdown in this game off a nice scramble from Jameis Winston. Those two have a good connection. David Njoku as well has had a very good connection with Jameis Winston. He's one of the best tight ends in the league. I think he's pretty underrated. It sounded like he could have potentially got traded at the trade deadline, but the Browns elected to hold on to him. There's a lot of teams that I think would have very much benefit from having David Njoku on their team. He's fantastic. The Steelers, though, they just find a way to get it done. Russell Wilson doesn't have to throw for too many yards. Like you said, it's kind of a boring game. Steelers defense was very good in this game. Cam Hayward gets 2 sacks, and then Alex Highsmith gets one as well. They force a couple fumbles. Like you said, the Kadarius Toney muff punt for the Browns hurt them as well. I don't know how teams continue to trust Kadarius Toney with attempting to catch the ball. It hasn't worked out in the past, and I expect it to continue to be like that going through towards the future. And the Steelers just pick up a win. They needed to get this win to get to 10-3 going ahead. They have that rough schedule, like you said. All four of the rest of their games are going to be tough. If they could finish that 2-2, they should. That should be enough to win the division, but it's going to be tough.
Okay, we'll move on now. Two game stretch here that I just couldn't care less about, so we can just power through these really quickly. Saints beating the Giants 14-11. This game was pretty much pointless, but great for the Giants to lose because you needed to lose this game. Giants defense really ain't bad. Honestly, they have some problems to address, many other problems to address with their offensive line and their quarterback. As far as the entire team goes, and maybe their head coach, who knows? But their defense isn't that bad. Giants currently sit at the number two pick in the draft, right behind the Raiders, so they have just as good of a chance as anybody to get that number one pick and get themselves a Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, which I think they will most likely do. Really just punts, turnovers, and missed field goals this entire game for both teams. Giants were abysmal. 5 for 19 on third down. That's an unbelievable number. Getting into 19 third downs is crazy in itself, but only converting on five of them is absurd. Horrible number there. They also had 12 penalties in this game. Like I said, don't have a ton to say. I couldn't care less about this game. Saints, though, they continue to screw their own draft pick. Classic Saints. They're an all-time bad tanking team. They should have been one of the worst teams in football over the past few years after Drew Brees and really built up their roster. But they continue to find a way to get out of cap hell, get themselves right on the edge, and then win 7, 8 games and end up with like the 10th or 15th pick. Not a recipe for success. They need to start losing games, and they've won a couple pointless ones down the stretch here.
Yeah, and this year with so many teams either being so bad or so good, I got to imagine 10 would be generous for them.
Yeah.
Let's look at the draft order. Right now they're
Well,
sitting at 11,
yeah.
so right around there. This team, like you said, they get themselves out of cap hell every year, and they're always mediocre. Derek Carr most likely is done for the rest of the season now after fracturing his hand. He wasn't great in this game, but that sucks for him. The Saints were not able to run the ball as well as I thought they would be. This Giants team had struggled against the run a little bit. Drew Lock is just not a good quarterback. I mean, we're at the point of the season where there's games like this every week that don't really matter at all except to draft odds. So there's really not much we can say. about these teams, but Drew Lock in this game was pretty bad. I stopped watching this game pretty much before halftime. Didn't really appear on Red Zone too much. I remember seeing Drew Lock being like 0 for 9 to start the game. This Giants offense just is not good. Malik Neighbors is kind of a bright spot, but I mean, he just doesn't really have the guys that throw the ball to him. Tyrone Tracy is their other bright spot. If they can get a quarterback in there, a Shadur Sanders, a Cam Ward, someone that can be a playmaker for them, that could be huge. They have some weapons, but they just need to fix that O-line still. The defense has potential. Um, it's just a disappointing game. They did finally cover though, so that was good to finally win a Giants cover after so long. We both did win a Giants cover at +5 in this game, and Giants moved to 0-7 at home. So just not great for the New York Giants and the Saints. Yeah, 5-8. They would like to start losing some games now, and I mean, Commanders, that should be a loss. Green Bay, Vegas, and Tampa. They can lose 3 of these next 4 games. Maybe they can move themselves up to a top 8 pick and finally get a good draft pick and pick a difference maker.
Yeah, the Saints are finding themselves as like the Bulls of the NFL right
Yeah,
now, to bring us
kind
back.
of.
But we can move on now to another game I didn't watch much of. The Jags beating the Titans 10-6. My God, another really pointless game here. Jags were absolutely helpless for like 3 quarters of this game. They had interception, punt, punt for their first 5 drives of the game. Luckily for them, the Titans were pretty much helpless too. The Titans are so weird offensively. They will have a game like the Houston game where they're great versus a good defense, and then they have a game where they're horrible versus a bad defense, like here. Pollard had another great game. He's continuing to have a good season. Titans win the turnover battle 2-0, still lose the game, which for them is actually good. They did the right thing in this game. The Jags did not. Both teams wanted to lose here, so of course it's a W for the Titans to actually be the team to lose it. Both teams now sit at top 6 in the draft, but both can move all the way up to 1 with some help. The Jags were sitting at number 1, but losing or winning this game screws them there. You have a group of like 10 teams now who are all dying for losses, and when they play each other, something's got to give. Here it was the Jags. It should have been the Titans. The Titans are the better team, but I guess they know how to tank better.
Yeah, I guess I know how to tank better. I'm trying to look through and the amount of times I picked the Titans to cover this season. At least 4. The last 4 times I picked the Titans to cover, they have not covered a single one. I don't know if I've really bet a Titans game correctly too much this season. They're one of the worst teams against the spread, yet in back-to-back weeks, I decide to pick the Titans on the spread, especially as favorites. Just a idiotic decision by me. Will Levis was not good in this game. He did get injured, hurt his shoulder right before halftime, and just didn't look good at all in this game. This was a game I thought he really had to kind of break out and prove that he's the quarterback of the future for this Tennessee Titans team, and he didn't. Only 168 yards, doesn't throw an interception, and doesn't get a touchdown, doesn't fumble, or he fumbled, but he didn't lose it. Just a really disappointing game from Tennessee. You get the loss, which is nice for your draft stock, but if I'm a Titans fan, I would have preferred to see Will Levis look like a franchise quarterback because it's just at the position they're sitting in right now, their draft pick is sixth, which being a 3-10 team and sitting at sixth in the draft is rough. But you're really not in a position right now for a top quarterback, so you're kind of still looking at Will Levis as being the QB next year. Just interesting predicament to be in. Both these teams are most likely going to keep their starting quarterbacks and have to build around them. Pollard was solid on the ground for the Titans. Calvin Ridley again, he was solid through the air. Just offense as a whole wasn't hard to come by for the Titans. No touchdowns. And for the Jags, Mac Jones did not look good in this game at all, yet they somehow come away with a victory. He threw 2 rough interceptions and didn't throw for a touchdown, but you get a Tank Bigsby touchdown on the ground, and Brian Thomas Jr. looks good. So they need to build up that defense, specifically the secondary, which surprisingly has a big game in this one against the Titans. And this game really doesn't matter. Both teams at 3-10 now, 5-6 in the draft order. Um, just a toilet bowl.
Yeah, bad, very, very bad. But we'll move on here to the NFC West with the Seahawks beating the Cardinals 30-18. Seahawks win their 4th straight game, put themselves in a pretty good spot for at least top 2 in the division at this point, and a great spot to win it. The Rams currently have the tiebreaker over Seattle, but they play a huge game for Week 18. So when we look at some of those games for Week 18, when they're flexing who's going to get the top spot, it of course depends. Does the Minnesota Lions game mean anything? Because if it does, then I assume that'll be Sunday Night Football that week. But if it doesn't, then this Seahawks Rams game is a big possibility for that Sunday Night Football game. Seahawks offense finally showed me what I wanted to see. I wanted to see a good, efficient performance from them. They finally had it. Charbonnet was great on the ground, 134, 2 touchdowns. He's had a couple good games this year. They haven't been able to run the ball well, so they need to figure that out, and they figured it out in this game. Kyler threw 2 picks on the first 3 drives. Both resulted in Seattle touchdowns, which put this game away pretty early for Seattle. Seattle's defense is really good enough to win a playoff game. I do truly believe that. They just need to face against teams with bad pass rushes. Cardinals are one of them, and they were able to beat them. If they can play a team that's not going to get to Geno Smith, they're going to be a lot better offensively, and their defense is consistently great. So I think that is a great matchup for them whenever they can face a team like this. Cardinals bye week really ended up killing their momentum, like we said it maybe could when their bye week came up. We said this isn't a great time for a bye because they're playing one of the best teams in football right now, and this could kill their momentum. And it did. They've lost 3 straight out of the bye week now. Seattle, like I said, though, in a good spot for the West. They do have the seventh hardest remaining strength of schedule, so that sucks for them. But Niners is pretty tough as well. So we'll see what happens, but they're definitely in contention.
Definitely in contention. Right now, the front runners to win that division. Geno Smith looked good in this game, great in this game, threw for 233 yards and a touchdown. The Seahawks have a great game on the ground, like you said. They were missing Kenneth Walker in this game. Zach Charbonnet, the backup, steps up and has a huge game, 2 touchdowns, 134 yards on the ground. In the receiving game, JSN continues to be a star. He's emerged as probably the favorite weapon for Geno Smith. He's getting a lot of targets and he's catching most of them. He had a touchdown this game and a couple really nice catches for the Cardinals. A really disappointing loss at home. They didn't run the ball great. They ran it well. The turnovers from Kyler Murray and the quarterback play really hurt them. 2 interceptions there. They got the ball to Trey McBride. He doesn't get a touchdown, but he looks solid. Marvin Harrison has another quiet game under 50 receiving yards. He hasn't had a spectacular rookie season and just a disappointing loss for the Cardinals. They now don't have any tiebreaker with the Seahawks at all, and they're sitting at about 2 games behind them. They're in a rough spot, third in the NFC West. I don't really see them being able to make the playoffs. They have some easy games here. The Patriots, Panthers, frisky team. It seems like every team plays the Panthers, Rams, and 49ers. So look, they have some winnable games. I just don't think they have enough to go and make a run for the playoffs. But with the Seahawks, I can see them making the playoffs 5-1 on the road. They got the Bears, which is a beatable team, and then the Packers, Vikings, NFC North teams there, and then the Rams to finish the season. I can see that Rams game being a win and in game, and it's in LA. I like the Rams in that case, but the Seahawks team is hot. Their defense has been good, and Geno Smith, if he can just limit the turnovers, he's been a weapon. So I like the Seahawks team, but it's going to be interesting to see down the stretch.
Alrighty, moving on here to Rams beating the Bills 44 to 42, 86 total points in this wild game here. Josh Allen, 6 total touchdowns. He had 50 fantasy points, 3 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns. He was great. We talked about bad takes from this year on last episode, episode 100, and I said that I still kind of stand by what I said about the Bills having a shaky defense, and it came to fruition in this one. They gave up 44 points. They were really, really bad in this game. Bills offense, though, was amazing outside of their inability to run the ball, but they really weren't trying to run the ball because they were down early and they just had to play catch up. Puka Nacua, phenomenal game for him. He goes for what was it, 162? What was it? It was where is it?
12, 162 and
162.
1.
Yeah, 12 for 162 and one there. This may be a common case here though of a team just needing to win a lot more. The Rams needed to win this game more than the Bills did. Of course, the Bills wanted the 1 seed, but the Rams are fighting for their lives right now, and this is a huge win for them. This is this game had an 8 drive stretch with 7 touchdowns, which was just very entertaining to watch. Rams have struggled in the red area all year long, but they were 5 for 6 in this game here. They were really, really efficient down there. They were able to control the clock, led time of possession by 17 minutes. Bills just needed one stop in this game to win, and they just couldn't really pull it off at any point. Bills need their defense to step up in Detroit next week. That's a huge game for them. They don't want to fall any farther than the 2 seed in the AFC rankings. They're playing a team that's also trying to fight for a top seed in Detroit, so that'll be a great game. Rams are a game back from the West now, with a win in Seattle and another game in versus Seattle in Week 18 in the 21st strength of schedule remaining. So they're in a prime position to win this division, sneak up on everybody. The other remaining strength of schedules, San Francisco 6th, Seattle 7th, Arizona 29th. So the Rams are in a good spot if they can continue to win the games that they have coming up, and especially if they can beat Seattle in Week 18. So I feel good about this Rams team. Their defense is not good enough to win a playoff game, unfortunately, but with a bad strength of schedule, they're definitely in play to win this division.
Yeah, they're definitely in play. They needed to win this game. They had been struggling in recent weeks, but they come out and have a huge game in this one. Offensively, they were fantastic. Puka Nacua has a huge game, like you said. Cooper Kupp was great as well. Kyron Williams gets 2 touchdowns on the ground and almost 30 carries, only 87 yards, but effective on helping that time of possession, and they were moving the ball great. Josh Allen played like an MVP in this game. Like you said, he had 3 touchdowns in the air, 3 touchdowns on the ground. He was great. Khalil Shakir continues to be a top weapon for this Bills team. 5 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Amari Cooper has a couple of big catches. This Bills team was great in the second half, 28 points in the second half, struggled a little bit in the first half offensively, but their defense really let them down this one. The defense has been better at home than on the road, and we see on the road here far away from Buffalo, they did not get it done at all. I agree with you, though. I think this is just the Rams have their back against the wall. They need to win. And I can see this Rams team making a run and winning that division. That's kind of what I'm looking at right now. I like the Seahawks, but I just think the Rams, they get that game at home in week 18 as well. I think they're able to get it done. No turnovers in this game at all, which is very impressive from both quarterbacks. Josh Allen, I think he's almost got to be the front runner for MVP right now, but there's still Lamar Jackson, a couple quarterbacks out there, and this Rams team back against the wall, pick up a huge victory. And time management by the Bills late was rough. I didn't like going for that QB sneak with under a minute and a half left and then wasting your timeout. You were unlikely to recover an onside kick, but uh, just bad time management in my opinion. And they were unable to get the ball back, and Rams pick up a big win.
Okay, sticking here in the NFC West, with the 49ers beating the Bears 38 to 13. This game was over from damn near the jump. Only the Bears can manage to resist the interim head coach bump. We see all these other bad teams be able to do it. The Bears could not. This game was never close. Bears went down 24 nothing at half. They had nothing but three and outs in the first half, except for one play that had one drive that had 5 plays and also resulted in a punt. 49ers defense was great in this one, even without Nick Bosa. They also didn't have Trent Williams. They were still able to dominate. Purdy was phenomenal, 20 for 25, through 25, 2 touchdowns. Great turnaround from him after a rough past few weeks. Bears decided to just not guard George Kittle for a lot of this game. He has another really good game and is continuing a dominant year. Despite looking great, though, the 49ers still have just 7% odds to make the playoffs right now, so they're not in a great spot. They're going to have to beat a lot of teams that are better than them, including the Lions, and they have the seventh rank or sixth ranked strength schedule, like I said, remaining. At this point for the Bears, though, they've lost 7 straight games. They sit at the number 9 pick. It's been a very tough year for the Bears. Hopefully for them, they can keep losing and getting a higher pick. Maybe they'll eventually win a road game. Still haven't won one, but it's looking now. They're sitting at 4-9. It's looking like unless they go 4-0 or 3-10, they're gonna finish with a worse record than they had last year, which is disappointing if you're a Bears fan.
Incredibly disappointing. Narrative couldn't have switched more going into the season. Everyone was saying that Caleb Williams was in the best position a rookie quarterback has ever been in, going to a team with that good of a defense, a good solid offensive line, and great receivers. And this Bears team has just been not good at all. 4-9. Right now they have the ninth draft pick, and there's a lot of teams ahead of them that are 3-10. So if they continue to lose, maybe they can move up. But right now, just very, very tough to watch. Caleb Williams was terrible in the first half. The Bears offense was atrocious. I think they had more punts than total net yards in the first half. Yeah, at one point it was 310 to 2 in total yards. First half, just embarrassing performance all around from every single coach, every single player, and who knows, they could find themselves back in the dud category no matter what for dud of the week. Caleb Williams finishes with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. Did lose a fumble in this game. First time he had lost a fumble in a couple of weeks, or had a turnover in a couple of weeks. They moved the ball better in the second half, but 49ers defense was playing farther off. Brock Purdy has a good game in this one. The Bears defense hasn't been good. Isaac Guerriendo has a solid day on the ground, but he gets hurt as well. So the San Francisco 49ers are losing another running back, and it could be Patrick Taylor Jr. as the lead back for the 49ers going forward. They have a rougher schedule remaining. The game next week is basically a playoff game for them against the Rams. If they lose that, I'd say it's pretty much over, with Miami, Detroit being a impossible game for them, and then the Cardinals. So they got some tough games left. I don't know if they'll be able to get it done, but they start a great stretch here and just dominate the Bears from the jump. Game was not close at all, and just an easy win. Oh, there was one thing I did want to say about the 49ers. I almost forgot. I had just seen a tweet from Deebo Samuel. He
Oh yeah, I
said
saw that. Yeah.
he said not struggling at all, just not getting the ball. So
Yeah.
so interesting to hear that from Deebo. And then he says just because I voice my opinions doesn't mean I'm hating on any of my teammates. So
It's kind of what it means. But
Jawan
um
Jennings though is a dog. He has a big game in this one as well
yeah, he's been the best
with
receiver
Kittle.
for
He
been the
has
best
been.
best Niners receiver all year. But we could finish off this recap here with Sunday Night Football, Chiefs beating the Chargers 19-17. Chiefs magic continues here with another doink to win the game. This was a true grinded out game. The Chargers desperately needed J.K. Dobbins in this game. They probably win it with him. Pacheco was a lot better in his second game back. Still is not up to his complete Isaiah Pacheco ways, but I'm sure he will get there soon. Chiefs defense was stellar in the first half. They match up really, really well with the Chargers. This is the team that they want to play. I know it's hard to beat a team twice, but the Chiefs would probably love a matchup versus LA in Kansas City in the playoffs. I think that would be a great matchup for them. Chargers were able to play their style of the ball in the second half, though. Long drives, really drag it out, but it just wasn't enough because of that first half. Defensively, I feel like the Chargers played a great game. I really still like this Chargers team. I think they can win a playoff game with their defense as long as they don't match up with a team like the Chiefs, who is going to stuff their run and give them no ability. I think they have a chance to go beat a team like Buffalo or go beat a team like the Steelers in the playoffs. Those are two teams that I think they match up fine with. The Chiefs are not that team. They still have a 90% chance to make the playoffs, though. If they can get J.K. Dobbins back, they're going to be in a good spot. I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs by any means, but this is a game that if a couple more things go their way, they probably win.
Definitely. And I mean, you look at the weapons right now around Justin Herbert, it's not great. The first half, 0 points from the Chargers offense as a whole. I expected this to be a low scoring game. The under does hit in this one. The Chargers just don't have the weapons. Gus Edwards was their lead back. Kamani Vidal, the rookie, he gets 8 carries behind Gus Edwards, 10, only 94 yards on the ground total from those two. We saw Justin Herbert get a little banged up and Heineke come in for a play. And then in the receiving game, you got Josh Palmer, Stone Smart, Quentin Johnston, Will Dissly, DJ Chark, Jalen Rager, Darius Davis, Tucker Fisk as the pass catchers for the Chargers. There's not many names there that are going to go out and get a huge play for you. I think Josh Palmer is a very solid receiver, but by no means should he be a wide receiver one on the team. He should be a depth guy, a wide receiver three maybe, but just not the weapons for Herbert. And considering this team is 8-5 this year, that's very impressive from them. Their defense has been great. Chiefs going a long drive to milk the clock and set themselves up for just an easy game-winning field goal. They make it harder than it has to be, having to doink it in. Mahomes makes the big plays on that last drive like he always does to milk the clock. Him and Kelsey continue to be Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey, one of the best duos in the NFL. They make the big plays on third down to win their teams the game. Quiet day from the rest of the guys. Hopkins was quiet. Worthy was quiet, but they get the win. They didn't turn the ball over, and that's big for this Chiefs team. Second half, you would have liked to see them come out and kind of put the game to rest. They didn't do that, but they still find a way to win. So the Chiefs are going to be the Chiefs. With the Bills lost, they're looking a lot better for getting that first round bye potentially. Still have some tough games left. The Browns, they should win that game. And then Texans, Steelers, Broncos. Those are three tough games. I can see them losing maybe one of those, but at that point they'd still have, I think, they'd still have it on locks no matter what, the conference. So if they lose two, maybe they're in trouble, especially if they lose to the Steelers, but it looks like the Chiefs are going to get that first round bye.
Okay, moving on here to our studs and duds. I will start off with a stud. I can't not pick Josh Allen here with 6 total touchdowns. He was the best player in football yesterday. He's well on his way to winning an MVP here. 117 passer rating. He had 141 last game. I'm just seeing that now. That's crazy. But like I said, 3 total touchdowns, 350 yards passing. Rushing, he also had 82. So you're looking at a guy that had 400 plus total yards and 6 total touchdowns. Easily the best player in football this week. Unfortunate his defense couldn't get it done, and he still ends up with the L.
For my start of the week, I'm just going to go with a little bit of a duo here. And I'm going to go with the two Vikings receivers, Justin Jefferson, 7 catches, 132 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was unstoppable. And then Jordan Addison, 8 catches, 133 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Those two were unstoppable against the Falcons defense. They had no answer, and just a dominant performance by those two.
Okay, so that will. Oh no, we have duds on me. Um, Dud of the week. I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins. Obviously, he's been really, really bad. Like I said, 0 touchdowns, 8 interceptions in his last 3 games or 4 games, and they've lost all 4 of those. He's now he is unbelievably second in passing yards right now, but 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, and a QBR of 56.3. He's been pretty bad over this last stretch. This is when they needed him to be good. Of course, there's other issues with this team that have led them to lose 4 straight games, but he's been a big problem. I should have picked him last week, so I will right my wrongs and take him this week.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to go back-to-back weeks. I thought you were going to go with the guy who had 0 catches against you.
I should have,
Uh,
but that's what it is. I had to get my
yeah,
Kirk fix off.
I really don't want to do it, but it just I feel like I have to, and I have to go again, banging my head on the wall. The Bears, just you coming out of that, firing your coach, and just the first half performance that you saw was honestly just embarrassing. Again, I don't want to pick them, but I'm going to. I mean, two more punts than total net yards in the first half is just embarrassing to not only the players, the fans are just. I couldn't even imagine being a Bears fan. That'd have to suck. And there's not much else you can say. It's just embarrassing.
Okay, so that will about do it for this episode of the Engage A Pod. We will be back on Wednesday tomorrow to give you guys a preview of week 15 for the NFL season. Bye weeks are done, so we're full slates from here on out, as well as talking about the college football playoff bracket and the championship week that just ended. We have all that, so I'm sure we will have a ton to talk about there. But until then, if you made it this far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, hit all the links in our description for Spotify, TikTok, social media, and all that good stuff. And we'll see everybody in the next one.